Thank you, Bishop. What a beautiful day, isn't it? You know, yesterday was about 20 degrees hotter, so I think Catherine McCauley, who is the founders of the Sisters of Mercy, is definitely looking down upon us with a little breeze here in this beautiful weather, so we're so thankful for that. And thank you, Bishop, for that wonderful invitation. We're always proud to start with a prayer here, and that really represents our faith and heritage here at St. Alphonsus. In fact, when we open this facility in 2017, we will be celebrating 100 years of Catholic healthcare in Nampa and Canyon County. That is just fantastic. It's kind of neat that we're going to open our 100th year anniversary. That's great. While healthcare has changed dramatically over the past 100 years, from medical technology to the way we deliver care to evidence-based care, and this hospital will feature all of those greatest technologies. But what hasn't changed is the mission of the Sisters of Mercy that they brought to Nampa that 100 years ago. And they provided compassionate care to all that came through our doors, whether they had ability to pay or not. Their mission is what drives our physicians, our nurses, and all of those who work at St. Alphonsus here in the Valley. Now, many of you have heard the story, and I can't tell the story about this campus without talking about this. So if you don't know what this is part of my journey here and how we got to this campus. But this is a napkin, and to many of you it's just a plain old napkin, but to me it really means something that's been framed in my office for the past 5 years. And at the time St. Alphonsus came together as a system, which was right about 5 years ago, the system brought all of the boards together to envision what St. Alphonsus was going to be in the future. And I had an opportunity to steal some time from, at that time, Rick O'Connell, who was over Trinity Health's hospitals. And so a physician and I kind of cornered him, and we had some time with him. And we were talking about kind of the future, and he asked us, what do we need to fulfill our mission in Nampa? And what I told him is, I said, I thought we had a great staff. We had great leaders within our organization. I thought good nurses, good doctors. I thought our system leadership that came together with Sally Jeffcoat, Blaine Peterson, with Rodney, with Ray Gibbons, with Steve Brown. I thought we had great system leadership to embark on this new vision. I thought we had everything in place. We just needed a little time and a little money. So as we talked about being a little time so we could get to the place we needed, and we needed some money. So looking at the facility we had, it had been there for 45 or 40 plus years, and that we needed a little money to make some renovations as it had been. And so we actually sat down and talked about the commitment. So this is a contract, and I'm sure it won't hold up in the court of law, but this was a contract between us and this other physician around what we need to do as a community. And our commitment was that we needed to work on making sure we have the highest level of quality, provide world-class care, have access to our community, and really have our community involved in how we take care of the population in this market. And his part of the contract was that if we did that and we made that commitment, he would provide the resources for us to make sure we could accomplish those goals. And so we both signed it. It actually talks around our care close to home and what Trinity Health's commitment to us has been. And on the napkin, it talks about a $10 million commitment. Now we have Trinity Health and St. Alphonsus has far surpassed that $10 million commitment. So I usually don't want to bring that up. When I talk about that, I usually talk about the loaves and the fishes. So we definitely, on the Sermon on the Mount, we definitely have exceeded that. So, but it's just, this has been a reminder to me of kind of that commitment. And a commitment from what the sisters, when they came here around 100 years ago, have for this community. So there have been many changes in medical care since we opened up our current facility in 1968. The technology has changed, the way we care for patients has changed, and even the needs of patients and families have changed. But what hasn't changed is the way that we look to care for those patients. And what was built 47 years ago isn't suitable for how we deliver care today. And so that is part of the why that we're looking at doing this here. Several years ago, with the help of our community board, we began evaluating what would be the best way to achieve those goals and achieve our mission. We looked at many different options out of a possible remodel of our current facility and what that would entail. And after much study and review, was determined that to provide the best care in this community and to be good financial stewards to our community, that a replacement hospital would be the best option. Now that was a major undertaking by our board, and I want to publicly thank our board. Our board of directors are fantastic here, and especially the leadership of our past board chairs, Victor Yamamoto and Jeff Agenbrod, for helping leading us through this process. So thank you very much for that. And we're indebted to their leadership, and I know that they are pleased to see that we're it's a long time, but pleased to finally be here at this point today. When we open our hospital in the next 2 years, it doesn't mean we're abandoning the 12th Avenue campus. We will continue to have services at that location. We'll have emergency services, we'll have other ancillary services like lab, radiology. We'll continue to have physician offices at that location because we know that their access to that part of the community is still needed. So we'll want to make sure we continue to have services in that location for our friends and neighbors that are in that part of Nampa. This hospital has always had tremendous community support, both in terms of volunteers, and we have about 250 volunteers that volunteer at the hospital, which is amazing, and in financial support. In fact, the first capital campaign was back in 1919. So the sisters started out in a tent. So actually, this is probably bigger than the tent that they had when they started the hospital. But they started out in a tent, and they needed to raise some money to start that new hospital. And although we have financial support from Trinity Health, we will be launching a fundraising campaign to raise $3.5 million to go towards this campus. Now, out of an $80 million construction project, which is what this hospital will be built for, this is a small but important contribution. And back to that napkin, that's part of our commitment we're making as a community to make sure we improve the level of care we provide in this community. And so everyone will have access to that care. So I do want to thank our board again and our senior leadership. They have already made a commitment to this capital campaign, and we hope, again, you as the community will support us in that and will support the services that we provide you. Before we move on to the other speakers, I do want to thank all the staff that have spent countless hours on the design, on how it should flow, how materials should flow, and just working through how do we provide world-class care here in Nampa. And I do want to publicly thank the team, the nurses, the physicians, and the other teams that have worked through this. And I'm truly excited about this project and what it means for healthcare in Nampa and Canyon County in our future. So at this time, I'd really like to welcome Lieutenant Governor Brad Little to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Karl, Mr. Christensen. Karl, for those of you in the back, that was a Shore Lodge bar napkin. And 38 years ago, that's where I proposed to my wife, but she didn't make me sign the contract, but it's held up pretty good. So that's a good indicator for me, and I like that common denominator. But 100 years, when you talk about Idaho, we had some Chinese trade delegation, and China's a little older than Idaho. When you talk about the fact that the territory alone is only 150 years old, and that St. Al's been practicing here for 100 years, speaks well of the system, but it also talks about the growth. Nampa's Mr. Mayor. Well, I won't get into whether you're second or third, but the issue is what facilitates that growth, and why do people come to Nampa? Why do people stay in Nampa? Why do they locate here? And there's no question that affordable, high-quality healthcare and the people that are in these buildings are a huge magnet to economic development. The mayor's going to talk here in a minute after I get done with my 45-minute speech and talk about it. But it's the infrastructure that we're about ready to start. It's the people that are there, but it's also the caring for the community that's taken place for 100 years. And I'm sure, I know I won't be here for the 150th event, but it really is a large part. And from all of Idaho, thank all the people that are donors, that have supplied the hospital, that work in the hospital, and have created this foundation for development and for growth in this community. But I want to congratulate you for keeping the community healthy. I want to introduce Mayor Henry. He and I just last week did another $80 million ribbon cutting across the freeway at the new food manufacturing. So we don't show up for $75 million, only $80 million. Thank you very much.
I could actually kind of get used to this coming to these $80 million events, and so we just need to do this about every week would be nice. And just for sake of argument, the U.S. Census Bureau says that we are 442 people ahead of Meridian. And so if you can't believe the U.S. government, who could you believe? So my story is we're still number 2 and proud of it, but I'm just proud of Nampa. This is a wonderful community, and to look at the investment that St. Al's is putting in our community tells me that they think this is a pretty good community too. I've said before, my experience with St. Al's is you guys have a whole bunch of really, really smart people involved in your organization. And so generally speaking, you don't do dumb things. And so spending $80 million here, unless you thought it was a good idea, is a smart move. And so you think that Nampa, Idaho is a good place for you to put a substantial investment. And I just want to say thank you. I love Nampa. I'm very proud of Nampa. And when I see this, when I see on the freeway, the first thing people are going to see, or the last thing people are going to see as they're on this freeway, is this wonderful facility. It's something we can be very proud of. And I know that you will do a first-class job here. I know that. I mean, you always have done a first-class job. When you took over from Mercy, the transition was smooth. The way you got involved in our community with the Boys and Girls Club, Meals on Wheels, and the Festival of Trees, all of those things where you made an impact on our community, I know that you'll continue to do that. This is a huge impact. This economically, we all know, this is wonderful. The doctors and nurses and technicians and everybody else that will be coming here is good for Nampa. But when I was reading the little blurb, the groundbreaking ceremony, and what I took heart in is, I'm sure you have really high-paid consultants that told you how to build this facility. But the very last bullet point says, physicians, nurses, community partners, EMS, and a variety of staff are helping design and provide input into clinical work areas. What that tells me is you understand that those people that are going to be intimately involved with this, you wanted their input. You wanted to make sure that this was something that made sense to them, so that when you open the doors, it was, well, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. You took the time to get their input, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that as you began the process, you came into City Hall, we had issues, and we sat down together, and we figured it out. We said, it was the roads and other stuff, and we said, okay, how can we as a government figure it out so that we can get out of your way and let you guys do what you do best? And so I say all of that to say I'm very proud, and I just want to say thank you for looking to Nampa, Idaho, and saying this is a place where we want to make a substantial investment. This is the place where we want to grow, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. And with that, I want to introduce Roger Ryder, President and CEO.